So in conversation today with us is Gujarat Titans Director of Cricket, Vikram Solanki. Vikram, thank you for taking out time for talking to us. First things first, Gujarat Titans are in an unfamiliar territory. So to say, bottom half of the table is something which you haven't seen in the first two editions. So first, as the Director of Cricket, how do you kind of wrap your head around the fact that it hasn't been the kind of season which you are used to?
Firstly, I'd say we're only sort of into our third season, so it's not a matter of getting used to anything. You're absolutely right in saying we had two outstanding seasons. That's all in the past now. Moving to this season, you think about actually the position that we're in the table. You find a lot of the teams are in exactly the same position. We're at the halfway point. There are a lot of teams on that 6 point sort of mark. There's a few teams on 8. Then you've got sort of Rajasthan setting away at 12. So this second half is going to be a very interesting phase as far as the season's concerned. A couple of wins, and the whole complexion of that table changes. So it's really what happens between now and that point at which you're sort of getting towards the business end, as you might call it, as the media might call it. So it's going to be an interesting phase of the season.
No, just looking back at the games which have happened so far, would you identify a couple of concerns cricketing wise which you have observed, whether it's the middle order, some lack of depth in the bowling? What have you identified which you would like to rectify going forward?
Look, I think I'm honest enough to sort of say that we haven't been at our best in some of the games. Some of the games we should have closed out. We got into positions to sort of win games that we've let go. But the other team are here to sort of challenge and be competitive as well. So you've sort of got to acknowledge their performance as well as analyze your own performance. And then there's no question that in a few games, especially the games that we've been on the wrong side of the result, we've probably let the game go a little bit, whether that be with a bat, ball, or in the field. We haven't been at our best. And had we been those games in particular, and then as a result, the table itself might have had a different sort of complexion to it.
No, I'm not saying that desperation would creep into the group now after what has happened in the first half, but do you sense that urgency or desperation within the group to do well? Because, just because of what you have achieved in the first two seasons, I know the sample size is less, but just because they're so used to success, so how are they taking the disappointments which have happened in the season so far, the group?
Yeah, look, a loss hurts. We're having a conversation. I was talking to somebody, a really experienced cricketer, who said the players feel it the most, and that's very true. We've all been involved in the game long enough to realize actually it's the players that hurt the most. Fans hurt, of course they do, but the players take it to heart. They really do, and I think the team has sort of felt that. But what you've got to do as well is sort of acknowledge it should hurt. It does hurt, but actually we've got to move forward. And the group is very good at being focused at what's ahead, whether that be after a win, not getting too far ahead of yourself, after a loss, not getting too down on yourself, in equal measure. So we're very much focused on what lies ahead. The games that are coming up are important games. And everybody to a person is working hard towards sort of making sure our preparation is on point so that we can go and deliver a plan as we have done previously and been successful.
No, Vikram, just quickly coming to the impact player rule, the house is so far divided on how teams are using it and how it was meant to be used. So, as a former cricketer yourself, now director of cricket, just cricketing wise, did you ever imagine the impact player rule to be used in the manner which it is being used now? Because we're seeing, Joss Butler. I'm not naming cricketers and I don't want you to comment on cricketers, but just giving you examples that, teams are exploiting the fact that the players are half fit, they can get an opportunity to bat. So did you ever imagine that it would be used in such a way and it's just feeding the entertainment bit and diluting probably the all-rounders role and the cricketing bit of it?
Yeah, to be honest with you, my honest sort of answer to that question is no. I didn't see it playing out like that. But as is the case with any significant rule change, you sort of have to be minded that people are going to test the water. People are going to try and find best use of it. People are going to try and find an advantage if they can gain any in it. And all of the things that you've outlined is essentially what teams are doing, is trying to find, well, how does this help us? And I totally get your point about sort of importance of all-rounders, and if you have an impact player, as has been the case in the last 2 seasons, then you're somewhat diluting the importance or the significance of an all-rounder within a team. And I think that's a bit of a shame, because you think of all of the great all-rounders that have played in the past. You know, they're wonderful entertainers, and people admire them for the fact that they can impact the game both with bat, ball, and most of them with the field as well. So you have a particular admiration for guys that can certainly cover all 3 formats, but at least 2, 2 facets rather, not formats.
Now, if I would just hypothetically ask you to get the Gujarat Titans color off you and just think purely as a cricket fan and a former cricketer, would you get rid of the impact player rule from the next edition? Personally, I'm not asking you to officially say that, but like in a personal capacity, what would you make of it?
Yeah, my take on this is that I think the tricky part is going when you haven't got when it's not the case in other not the case in other not formats. I'm talking about international cricket. If you need all rounders in the international formats, you sort of, I think we should maintain the importance of them in the domestic game, in franchise cricket as well. I think I have to acknowledge that it has been entertaining to some extent, you know, when people have watched. So you've got the ability to sort of send in an extra batter when you've needed to play an extra bowler. You're effectively playing a game which is 12 aside. 11 aside, in my mind, was fine. It was for a long time. If it's the case that it's likely to move, and I see the point when you think of other sports and there's substitutions and there's sort of, you know, strategic plays as far as substitutions are concerned. I get that as well. I get the entertainment point of view. But I suppose I'm sort of set in my ways of having watched, played, and fallen in love with the game when it was 11 aside. And unless that's changing across the board, and by that I mean in international sport, I don't see the need for it. But it's okay. You know, it's sort of, I suppose, rectified certain aspects of the game. It's made it more entertaining. I don't know from a spectator point of view whether that sort of strategic change and actually an opportunity to recover because you have an additional batter. I don't know if that's made a change from a viewership point of view.
Lastly, before we let you go, I know you would have spoken about this a lot, you know, the new captain Shubman Gill, but I just want to pick your brain on how you are actually handling and managing Shubman Gill now that he has the added responsibility. In the previous 2 seasons, it was more about him just focusing on his batting because there was Hardik and there were other senior players who were taking care of the leadership bit. You did mention that he was always a part of a leadership group. But now, how do you balance out and juggle Shubman Gill, the captain, and his own personal ambitions of probably playing for India across formats? There's a T20 World Cup next month. So how do you kind of ensure that he's in good space so that it doesn't affect what he's doing with the bat and it doesn't affect the decisions which he's taking in the field?
I think Shubman has played the game. He's a young player, but and a hugely talented and an exceptional cricketer at that. He's young of age, but he's a reasonably experienced cricketer. He must, to some extent, deal with all of the things that you're talking about himself. We are, of course, all around to support him, and that goes from the sort of staff to the senior players, and actually those that are the younger players as well. You know, that they can, as a team, we can all support Shubman, and we do support Shubman in everything that we do. From a batting point of view, he is somebody that I see as totally committed to his game. He does everything that he needs to. He leaves no stone unturned in terms of his preparation, in terms of his sort of focus on what he needs to do. From a batting point of view, just because you take on the captaincy, that doesn't change. The sort of notion of when you scratch your guard as a batsman, not as a captain. Of course, he then has to sort of start thinking about the team and what he needs to do as far as his responsibility as a captain is concerned. But essentially, when he's scratching his guard as Shubman Gill, the batsman, not Shubman Gill, the captain.
Thank you so much, Vikram, and I wish you all the best for the remainder of the season.
Thank you.
And find themselves in the familiar territory, which we are all used to seeing them to be. So all the best for the game tomorrow and the season ahead. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you, Sahil. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Fastest cricket score updates, या सबसे डिटेल्ड स्टैट्स,
क्रिकेट के अंदर बाहर की खबरें
या हेल्दी डिबेट्स,
सबसे एक्यूरेट एनालिसिस
या फैंस का क्रेज, सबके लिए एक ही प्लेटफॉर्म, क्योंकि क्रिकेट मतलब क्रिकेट नेक्स्ट।